Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera. With me is Douglas County Manager Steve Mokrohiski. And welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Lloyd. How you doing?
I'm doing well, but do you realize that we now have 2 Walmarts in Douglas County?
Yeah.
One at each end?
That's right. We're bookended by Walmarts.
Bookended by Walmarts.
Yeah.
Do you feel any different? Is there energy in the air?
I feel like we have a great opportunity to come together between those 2 Walmarts in the core of the Minden-Gardnerville area and create a great sense of community for the future.
Okay.
So, pros and cons with Walmarts. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we'll talk about
Okay.
Walmart after we talk about the commission meeting, because
All right.
we'll want to go right to the commission
Sure.
meeting. But yeah, we'll get back to Walmart. But yeah, small valley, lots of Walmarts.
That's right.
Okay. Well, we're going
I
to talk.
guess we're buying a lot of goods. You know,
I guess so. We're consumers.
Okay.
January 17th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners is what we're going to talk about first. And they met up at Lake Tahoe. And at that meeting, commissioners heard a presentation on the summer 2012 Pathway to Prosperity Tahoe Chamber Trek. And they went to Monterey Bay, Livermore, and Sacramento. I wonder if you can tell us about the trek and also tell us the purpose of that.
Right. I was not able to go.
Okay.
And I'm
You
really
were invited, though.
I was invited. Yes,
Okay.
They invited me. I was not able to go because of a scheduling conflict, but I understand they had a great visit. Really, the purpose of this with the Tahoe Chamber and leaders from the city of South Lake Tahoe, from Douglas County, from the business community, and others who all attended, was to visit these different communities, particularly in Monterey Bay and in Livermore, and understand what they had done in similar situations that we're in the State Line, South Shore area of Lake Tahoe, where, you know, we've talked about this here before. We've got a 5-lane highway that cuts through the heart of that sort of downtown casino core in South Lake Tahoe area. How do you create a livable, walkable place that residents want to experience and visitors want to experience within that environment and those constraints that are there? Well, these constraints existed in Monterey Bay and in Livermore 15, 20 years ago. And so they faced the same challenge. They had the same hurdles that they had to overcome. And they've been able to create the type of community that their residents want to live in and that visitors want to come back and spend money in. So that really was the purpose of the Chamber Trek, was for these leaders in the Tahoe area to visit those places and understand what they'd done. Creative idea, you know, some really long-term planning that had to occur, and some structural transportation investments and other improvements that had to occur, as well as some simple things like changing their local regulation and codes to allow businesses to put dining tables out in parking spots and give up those parking spots for outdoor dining experiences. So both big things and little things that contributed to that. So I think it was a very beneficial experience for the group. They, you know, focused on transportation, collaborative partnerships, tourism, community visioning, and economic development. And then they ended the trip in Sacramento with a legislative briefing with a number of legislators on the California side. As we all know, we've got the Nevada and California, this bi-state relationship that we have at Lake Tahoe, and the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, which is a bi-state regulatory authority that regulates all development in the Tahoe Basin. So, you know, all that was good. They developed, you know, a number of recommendations that were really intended to focus on creating that livable community for the future. And so some of the goals that they identified were to improve the physical appearance of the community. And we hear this oftentimes from visitors to Lake Tahoe. In fact, I had friends who were here this last weekend who came with their young children to go skiing at Heavenly. And they come to Tahoe and they see the lake. You know, you drive down Kingsbury or Spooner and you see this incredible natural jewel that is second to none in the nation and possibly the world. And then you get down into that lower Kingsbury state line area, and the human-made infrastructure is less than desirable. And people really scratch their heads when they visit for the first time, and they think, how can you have such a wonderful natural environment and such run-down built environment? And we're now starting to realize there is always this clash between the environment and the economy. that, well, in order to protect the environment, it would have to come at the sacrifice of the economy, or in order to grow the economy, you had to hurt the environment. And I think most reasonable people have realized now that is not true. You can have it both ways. You actually can redevelop the built environment in Tahoe and spur the economy and improve lake clarity and the environment in the Tahoe Basin. And so that really is the goal here. Improve the physical appearance of the community, improve the transportation system, recognize the importance of tourism to the economy and the fact that people who come to visit Tahoe are no longer coming because they want to spend 4 days locked in a dark casino. That may be part of the experience that they want to have, but they also want to get outside. They want to access the lake, they want to touch the lake and feel it, they want to get on a bike and ride on a bike path, they want to walk around, they want to have a shopping and a dining experience. All of these things now are part of the visitor and resident experience in Tahoe and in all of our communities. And so recognizing the geotourism efforts, looking at educational opportunities, four-year colleges, to enhance those opportunities and grow the talent locally. So those were all things they looked at. I think this was a starting point, and we'll continue these type of treks to look at how other communities are dealing with challenges or have dealt with challenges that we face today.
And is that basically what you were just telling me, summing up what the pathway to prosperity is? I mean, fixing all those things?
It is, yeah. I mean, we recognize those are the challenges that we have in Tahoe and in Monterey Bay and in Livermore. They've really taken those challenges of having, 5-lane state highways that cut through their downtown corridor. What do we do? How do we make it more inviting for pedestrians? And how do we have shops and restaurants and all of these types of things? And they've been able to do it there. And so the goal of this group, again, was to go and learn what were the techniques, what were the projects, what were the investments that they made in those communities, and how can we take some of those ideas and apply them to our South Shore community and really enhance the experience for residents and visitors in the future.
Of course, in the case of Livermore, they lucked out. They moved the highway.
That's right. That's right. And we're having that discussion in Tahoe about how do we realign that some of that traffic and get it out of the way so that we can open up some more of the Highway 50, that state line corridor for more pedestrian activity. So those are tough discussions. Those take a lot of money, takes a lot of political will, and there's oftentimes concern from some residents and businesses. And so we're working through those dynamics, having workshops and trying to make progress.
Well, that plaza at the bottom of the gondola for Heavenly, they've kind of made that very walkable in there, but it's only a short distance.
It is, but that's a great example of what we'd like to see more of. Because and I was down at Heavenly last weekend, and on Martin Luther King weekend, that Saturday, and it was mobbed. And these are people who come over from the Bay Area, from California, and they come in, and that's where they want to go. They want to gravitate to a place where they can get out, they can have food, they can they can shop, their kids can play, but there's not a lot of that.
Right.
Heavenly Village is one of the few places in the South Shore that you have that experience. So we want to develop more of those types of opportunities.
Okay, well, I think by putting that tag on the Heavenly Village kind of gives people the idea of what they want to do.
Right.
Just expand on that,
right.
That same theme. Because, you get down the road a little ways and the infrastructure gets kind of shabby.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've talked that one through.
All right.
Let's go
We'll keep talking about it. We haven't solved the problem
Oh, no,
yet,
I'm
but
sure we'll be talking about it.
We are on a path to prosperity, if you will.
Okay. Also at that meeting, Tahoe Township Justice Court Judge Richard Glasson asked commissioners for authorization to hire 2 justice court clerk positions. And why was Judge Glasson asking for that, and what did commissioners decide to do?
The judge was requesting 2 positions be filled. These were unfunded, so there was not money. As you may know, we're in the middle of a fiscal year, so the county's budget is typically adopted in May of each year, and it takes effect July 1st through June 30th of the following year. So we're in January of 2013. We're just over halfway through the current fiscal year. We like to have these discussions as part of the budget process, not outside of the budget process, but the judge requested that this come forward. He's argued that there has been an increased caseload and that they've gotten behind on their workload, and so that there was a need for these 2 positions, which would have totaled $105,000. So he provided a justification to the board for the need for that. There were some questions from commissioners about whether that was really 2 positions was justified. To give you an example, the East Fork Justice Court here in the Carson Valley, which Judge Perkins oversees, has a total of 6 positions. The Tahoe Justice Court, prior to the board's action, had a total of 4 positions. So had Judge Glasson's request been approved, it would have given the Tahoe Justice Court 6 positions, the equal amount as the Carson Valley's court. The difference is the Carson Valley has about 3 times the caseload as the Tahoe court. And so the question was raised by some commissioners, why do you need the equal amount of staffing even if your caseload is 3 times less than it is here in the Carson Valley? There were some concerns from the judge expressed about the type of cases in Tahoe and the number of visitors that come and the transient element of offenders that he sees in the court that are not local residents but are from out of town, and the challenges with that. Ultimately, what the board decided to do was approve the request for 1 position, not 2. So it's an increase in the current budget of approximately $52,000 in 1 position, and the board requested that the judge pursue a number of opportunities to create efficiencies and investment in technology to streamline the operations of the court and reduce duplication. And this is something that, Judge Young, who will be the new district court judge who gets sworn in, I think in the next week or so, we're very excited to begin work with, and Judge Gibbons, the other district court judge, and Judge Perkins have all expressed a desire to look at eliminating duplication and trying to share services together. That do we really need 3 different courts and staff within 3 different courts collecting fees in the same building? Why don't we just have 1 payment location within that building to collect all fees in the district court and the justice court? And the same has been discussed in the Tahoe court. Well, the clerk's office in Tahoe, the clerk treasurer's office in Tahoe, collects payments for DMV licenses. Why don't the clerks just collect the revenue from the fees for these court cases? So we'd like to see more of those investments. And what I've shared with the board and with the public and our staff is we've cut 65 positions in the county over the past few years. We've all taken 5% pay cuts, and we've been frozen, and we're reorganizing and restructuring our departments. And I've given 3 requirements. We need to spend less money on personnel that we have. We need to have fewer positions overall than we have had in the past, and we need to be more effective at what we do. So spend less money, have fewer positions, and be more effective at what we do. I think that's the trend in local government, is for us to partner with the private sector, with other public agencies to reduce duplication, to be more customer service friendly, to be more efficient at what we do, utilize technology to do that. And so, this is not exactly an example of being more efficient. This is an example of increasing the cost in the middle of a budget year for a position because of a specific need that the judge requested. And so we'll manage that within the budget, but I would, I'll continue to argue to the board, to our staff, and to the public that we need to continue to have a streamlined, leaner and meaner government body to provide the highest quality services we can to the public.
Well, you mentioned the money, that you'll find it somewhere, but where do you think you might find it? Because,
well,
the budget process, like you say, has been closed for quite a while.
It has been, and what we'll do is we'll identify funds. We have a contingency account in the general fund. We budget about 1.5% of our general fund is in contingency that we utilize for unanticipated costs. And so we'll likely fund this cost through that contingency this year. The issue is going to be next year and the year after. That's an ongoing cost. It's not a one-time cost, so it's really a structural impact on the budget. We need to boost the budget up $52,000 for that position in each year for the future. So we will do that as part of the budget process. We'll make the appropriate adjustment there, and we'll have the discussion about how to reduce an expense in another place or how to enhance a revenue through court fees or other ways. So, as I said to the board, that's my job. If they decide they want to spend more money in a place, they task me with finding a reasonable way to make that happen. And we are very diligent about how we set our budget and how we manage our budget. And we'll be bringing forward a discussion in the next few weeks about How we ended last year, again in the black. We have a practice of ending our general fund and most of our funds in the black, which means we either spent less money than we budgeted to spend, and or we collected more revenue than we budgeted to spend. And for last year, we did both. We spent less money than we thought we needed, and we collected more revenue than we thought we would. So we have about a 1.4% positive variance in our budget, and we'll continue that practice in the future.
Okay. Moving on to the next item here, commissioners were asked to provide direction to county staff on drafting a resolution related to the United Nations Environment and Development Agenda for the 21st century. This was adopted by the UN in 1992. It's a few years ago.
It was.
And what did commissioners decide, and can you give us a little more information about this UN agenda?
Yeah, the request was brought forward. There's been some discussion in some circles of the community about this issue, and so there was a desire among at least one commissioner to bring the discussion forward about whether or not Douglas County should take a position on this issue. So we provided some facts for the board about, and look, this is it has become a political issue. Whether or not it was intended to be a political issue, it has become that, where you have people on both sides of the political spectrum who are either for the provisions of this Agenda 21, adamantly for it, or who are adamantly opposed to it. And then there's those in the middle who question whether or not this is something, at least in Douglas County's case, that has an impact on local government, or that local government has an impact on, and we should take a position on. So we laid the facts out for the board. It was adopted in 1992 and signed by President Bush, by the United Nations, understand. It was signed by President Bush in the United States role with the United Nations, but it has not become law of the United States in any way. It has 40 chapters that address issues related to housing, protection of the environment, protection of rural areas, and other issues. Very, very long and extensive document. A couple points that have been raised. Does Agenda 21 impact private property rights in Douglas County? The answer is no. Agenda 21 has no impact on private property rights. State law, as well as the U.S. Supreme Court decisions, regulate private property rights in the United States, including eminent domain for public purposes. The other question, does Agenda 21 force Douglas County to develop high-density urban centers or force county residents to live in high-density areas? The answer is no. Agenda 21 has no impact on long-range or current planning decisions at the local level. And what we've said is planning decisions in Douglas County are carried out by the Douglas County Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners and must follow Nevada revised statutes, state law. So we really are governed on our planning and zoning requirements. We're governed, one, by the U.S. Constitution and U.S. law, by Supreme Court decisions, by Nevada state law, and by our own planning documents, our master plan, our code, our design manual that are adopted locally. So that's kind of the discussion that we had there. We also talked about professional planning in the U.S., where that goes back to the early part of the 20th century. So there's been planning in the U.S. for a long time. It's my understanding that Agenda 21 sort of came forward as a desire to have planning guidelines that had been created in the U.S. and Europe and developed countries, have them adopted in developing countries. But nonetheless, it has evolved to what it's evolved, and the concerns have come forward. The Board of Commissioners ultimately directed staff to work with Commissioner Penzel in this case, who has had some input on the issue, to draft a resolution that would not be in support or opposition to Agenda 21 specifically, but talk more about Douglas County's authority as a local governing body and as a community to manage and develop and implement planning and zoning guidelines for its future without undue restriction from international, national, or state agencies. So that is likely what we will see come forward based on the board's direction. They were very clear that they were reluctant to go what they said could be a slippery slope of responding to this United Nations, this international body's issue from 20 plus years ago. They wanted to stick to what the impact on Douglas County is, what our role as a local government agency is, the laws that we follow, and our rights as a community to plan for our area. So And I also, the thing that I am careful about is we want to make sure we have a lot of work to do. We've got a big budget, we've got a legislative session we're going into, and threats about costs being passed on or revenues being taken away from the state. We've got our own financial house to get in order. We've got public services we need to provide to the community and make sure we're doing working with the business community, providing quality services to the public, and doing our jobs, running this organization as cost effectively and lean as possible. And so we want to be careful the extent to which we get into discussions like gun control and social, and Agenda 21 and these other social type issues that we really don't have a direct responsibility for. We have a certain role as our local government body, and it's my opinion we should sort of stick to that. And the board really felt strongly in that position that we'll stick to Douglas County's role.
You just want to conquer Douglas County, not the world.
We'll start with Douglas County. Let's start there first.
Okay.
When we fixed all of the problems and all the challenges and issues we have in Douglas County, then maybe we can move on to some other things. So we will bring a resolution forward, that certifies and clarifies what Douglas County's desire is to have to maintain our rights to regulate our community in the way that we want and that our residents want for the future.
Okay, sounds fair enough. We covered the meeting. That was the Tahoe meeting.
Boy, it seemed like that meeting took longer than the time we just talked about. Right?
It sure did.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a preview of the February 7th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. What's on the plate?
Yeah, we have a lot to discuss and some big items. Probably the biggest item will be the anticipated award of the contract for the construction of the new community and senior center. We have 3 finalists. We have proposals from all 3. We've gone through extensive interviews and reviews from a selection committee and a design review group that's included county officials, elected officials, residents, advisory board representatives, a lot of input on that, and we'll have a recommendation for the board from the selection committee and the design review committee at the February 7th, and the board ultimately will approve the award of the contract to one of those 3. So that will be a rather large item, and encourage anyone who's interested to come out and hear that discussion. We'll have a few items related to Genoa. We've talked about on, I want to say January 26th, Saturday, January 26th at 10 a.m., we'll have a ribbon cutting for the new Genoa Vista Trail from Wally's into the town of Genoa that's been completed. So ribbon cutting in Genoa, that'll be exciting, and we have some cleanup business items on February 7th to do the assignment of the maintenance of the trail to the town of Genoa. We're also anticipating the award of the Main Street Enhancement Project, which is all the work that's going to be done in Main Street, Genoa. So we'll award that contract. There was a competitive bid, so that will go forward. We'll also have a discussion on availability fees for water and sewer. This is something we've talked about in the past. Standby fees, they've been called in the past. We call them availability fees for undeveloped lots, some sort of a charge for water and sewer service to those lots until they connect. So that'll be a sort of a policy discussion to get direction from the board on which way they want to go. So those are the big items that we'll talk about on February 7th.
Okay. Let's talk about the new Walmart store. We talked about that at the beginning. It's, of course, the Walmart store in Gardnerville is now open, as well as the Walmart store up in Indian Hills area has been open for quite a while. What impact do you see these 2 Walmart stores having, as you called it, bookends on Douglas County? Yeah,
we do. We're bookended by Walmarts, and I think that has, as with many things, pros and cons to that. Certainly, a lot of people shop at Walmart. I've shopped at Walmart, but my family shops at Walmart from time to time, and they, have a lot of goods, a lot of services. That have a great deal of value to a community. A lot of the goods and services are at a low cost. And I'll give you an example. My understanding is they're going to have a quick care, a health care type facility where people without health insurance can go and get a 15 to 30 minute appointment with a health care provider. If you have a child, and it's an emergency care type thing, but it's a low-cost option for people, particularly people without access, without health insurance or access to quality health insurance, that can see a healthcare provider rather quickly for minor treatments. So that's I view that as a really positive thing in general. It will probably create some competition in the healthcare environment in certain areas, and other services and goods that are provided there. So jobs. There are a lot of jobs that are being provided by Walmart and local residents who are going to be working at these stores, and that's outstanding. We still have, while our unemployment rate has come down from 15% to now just below 11%, that's a good trend. We still have over 10% unemployment in Douglas County. That's still pretty high. So we have a lot of residents that are unemployed that need jobs. So a company coming in that's going to employ a lot of people who need jobs is a good thing.
250 at the
250
Gardnerville
jobs
store.
in the Gardnerville store.
Right.
And so that's a positive. Tax revenue. We collect tax revenue in Douglas County, and we spend that on public services. So, particularly sales tax, and I understand there will be a gas station, gas tax revenue for roads. So all that revenue that comes to the public agencies to be spent on public services is a positive thing. All those are positives. I think, as has been talked about in the community, the challenge is for the small businesses within the Minden-Gardnerville area to identify how are they going to adjust. I think the Carson Valley Chamber's done a really nice job of bringing in consultants and working with local businesses to say, here's how you can market your business, here's how you can create a niche within a Walmart environment to enhance the business that you have. So I think that's positive. And my view from a long-term standpoint is what we need to do as a community is identify how we create that real sense of place, that Main Street, that sense of community in the downtown Minden-Gardnerville area between the two Walmarts. What do we do with those areas between the two Walmarts to make it the community that we want to be, that we want to live, that we want to raise our kids in, that we want to retire in, and that we want to work in and go to school in and everything. So I think that's the opportunity that we have to look at, is how do we create that. And there's some we're working on a vision for the Carson Valley, and we're working with the business community within all those areas, and Chris Bentley has talked about his vision for the old historic buildings that his family owns, the Wool Building and the Silo Building and the Creamery Building, renovating those, and those are iconic, beautiful buildings that if they can be renovated and bring in high-end tenants, that could have an impact. Chris Bentley has talked about bringing the V&T Railroad back into Minden. These are really powerful things that we can do to create a unique sense of place for our community, and I think that's going to be our task, is to embrace Walmart for the value that it brings to the community, but also let's make sure that we create the best downtown and sense of community in the rest of the area that we have.
We've only got about a minute left. Can you quickly tell us about the speed limits and the stop signs and everything that Douglas County is monitoring in the Walmart area?
Yeah, the Grant Avenue is now open. The speed limit goes from 45 to right at 55 right before you hit Grant Avenue, and so what we've asked NDOT is, please restudy that. We think it should come down because it's odd to go from 45, you're speeding up to 55, and then it's like you slam on the brakes to stop at that light. So we're advocating, the Board of Commissioners has approved a letter and is asking NDOT. They have committed to doing a speed study after Walmart opens and traffic normalizes.
You're going to be doing a state of the county,
Yeah.
and I wonder if you can get a quick plug in.
Thank you. We're on March 11th, and this is just a placeholder. Save the date. Monday, March 11th at the Carson Valley Inn at 6 p.m. 5:30 is when the doors will open. We'll have a little reception. Then 6 to 7 p.m. at Carson Valley Inn on March 11th. We'll do a financial state of the county. We're going to talk about everything that we're doing to get our budget in order, to get the services provided to the public, and what we're doing to partner with the business community. So I really encourage anyone who's interested, March 11th, 5:30, Carson Valley Inn.
Okay, great. We got it all in.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Mokrohiski, our county manager. That'll wrap up our county manager's report. I'm Lloyd Higuera, and we'll see you next time.